Hey, do you remember how in my last video about the war, I mentioned it was going to be a bumpy ride negotiating a peace treaty with Iran? Sure you do. I know it wasn't exactly a mind-blowing prediction, but now let me tell you what has happened since then and how we are falling into the pattern that is likely to continue for at least the 60-day duration of the Memorandum of Understanding that both sides signed on June 17th. Pablo el molinero. There was kind of a lull in the belligerent activity after the MOU was signed. Iran continued to harass some cargo vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, even launching some drones and low-level rockets on an almost daily basis. The U.S. responded a couple of times with limited attacks on some IRGC installation along Iran's western coast as a proportional response to the hostile activity. But Trump insisted that the Memorandum of Understanding and the 60-day ceasefire were still in effect. Even before the MOU was signed, Trump commented that a ceasefire in the Middle East only meant that the sides just shoot in a more moderate manner. On July 3rd, the regime in Tehran finally began its 6-day funeral for the defunct Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. On July 4th, the United States peacefully celebrated our happy 250th. Then, on July 6 and 7, Iran suddenly attacked 3 commercial vessels in the Strait, including a Qatari LNG tanker and a Saudi oil tanker. The U.S. responded with 2 days of punishing attacks on roughly 107 IRGC facilities that extended beyond Iran's western coastline. So given the activity in the last week, that 60-day MOU might seem as if it's on life support, but I don't believe it, and I'll tell you why. That is a pattern that many could have anticipated. Random renewed Iranian attacks in the Strait, followed by limited U.S. retaliation. Then, on occasion, when the IRGC's military assaults got out of hand, as it did recently, some more extensive and disproportionate responses. Those were designed to exact a cost far beyond the damage that the Revolutionary Guard is able to do with their drones and limited missile capacity. This perfectly underscores one of the basic problems we have had negotiating with the regime since the very beginning, namely the bipolar nature of their approach to the talks. I mean, the shooting stops for a few days, but then the IRG sends out some drones or missiles to attack something in an apparent contradiction to what the leadership has negotiated. It's like one side of the regime's brain is working independently of the other side. I believe that this split from at least 2 different factions is exactly what we're seeing. Now, consider this. One day after signing the MOU, the Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, said in a press release that he held a different view about the MOU, but that he gave his qualified permission to proceed as long as the negotiators didn't give up anything that would weaken the national interests of the country. Well, that's the kind of non-committal ambiguity that has been with us ever since God invented politics. So, when the IRGC launches a seemingly random attack on some shipping vessel in the Strait of Hormuz, it's hard to say if it was done in defiance of the negotiating government's position or with its tacit approval. In any case, it's equally difficult to know if whoever ordered the attack are rogue elements within the IRGC or if they are legitimately recognized autonomous authorities. Are there IRGC commanders on the ground deliberately ordering attacks precisely to provoke a military response and in doing so torpedo the broader peace process? Could be. And make no mistake, there is real ambiguity coming from our side as well. Donald Trump shifts from high praise for the new regime in Tehran to threatening all-out obliteration of the country. I believe the Iran government correctly assessed that the upcoming midterm elections, and especially the rising gasoline prices around the world, would have a large effect on the president's actions. But I suspect they may have miscalculated how this could go down. I think this is a very real scenario. The negotiations will continue in the same cycle: ceasefire, some fighting, and then back to ceasefire. Donald Trump will tolerate the regime's obvious negotiating insincerity for as long as he believes the negotiations remain worthwhile. As Iran's attacks intensify and the talks begin to break down, he will return to broader aerial attacks until he can claim that Iran is really desperate to make a deal. Then both sides return to the negotiating table and the roller coaster starts another lap. After the initial 60-day period of the MOU has expired, Trump could then offer a 60-day extension of the memorandum because we're so close to making a deal. The talks and the pattern continue. Trump makes sure to delay a possible total breakdown of the talks until after the midterm elections. By then, he will have managed to keep a lid on the gas prices, which is what voters will be focused on. Then after the elections, the menu of possible actions against the regime shall expand greatly. That may be a bold prediction on my part, and it may get me into some trouble, but if it happens just like that, you can count on this. I shall be patting myself on the back from time to time. Of course, there are other possible outcomes. One of the more optimistic ones is that Iran capitulates and signs a deal that satisfies the United States' demands. Another is that we go back to a full-scale military operation against the regime. I guess the cheeriest but least likely result would be that the Iranian population somehow rises up and ousts the Islamist government. At any rate, I want to tell you some things that are happening within Iran that you may or may not have heard about. I shall leave it to you to decide what they may mean. The IRGC is still very divided among the various factions. At the funeral of Ali Khamenei, some supporters of the IRGC were arrested for protesting against the ongoing peace talks. As far as I know, the Supreme Leader hasn't made any public statements since his different view comment about the MOU. Many regime supporters were reportedly dismayed that he didn't even say anything about his father's funeral. Some were angry that he didn't show up personally. Around the country, a number of IRGC members have recently been killed. Some of those assassinations were reportedly carried out by armed Kurdish groups operating in western Iran and possibly from neighboring Iraq. In other parts of the country, it's not so clear who is responsible. The speculation is that it could be armed citizens who oppose the regime, or maybe even from rival factions within the IRGC itself. Also, there have been a number of explosions in buildings that have been attributed to gas leaks or possibly sabotage. Some notable ones have occurred in the port cities of Bandar Abbas and Ahvaz. Some observers have questioned those official explanations because several of the damaged buildings were relatively modern, making gas leaks appear less likely. And keeping all of the above in mind, despite the recent hostilities and instability, oil prices have remained in the $75 to $80 range per barrel compared to the $120 price we hit in March and April. My final observation is this. I believe that much of Donald Trump's legacy as president will depend on the outcome of events in Iran. In geopolitical terms, this is the most consequential challenge he has chosen to take on. Even if he manages to liberate the people of Cuba and Venezuela, I suspect the headline for historians will be what happened in Iran. I say this because he chose to get involved there when he didn't have to. If he succeeds in bringing lasting peace to the Middle East, it could rank among the most remarkable geopolitical achievements in modern history. If he fails, he will join a long list of leaders who tried and couldn't change the dynamics of that region. I cannot believe that he is not aware of that. I just hope that it finally happens. This is Pablo El Molinero. I have a couple of quick updates. I would have included them in the video, but I decided they don't really change much of my analysis. I say file the information away with the other things I mentioned for you to evaluate. Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei's office has finally released a statement after the funeral vowing revenge on all of those involved in the death of his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. But really, what else was he going to say? No harm, no foul? He is standing with his one leg on a very thin tightrope. Anyway, no one outside of his most inner circle has even seen him since he assumed the role of supreme leader. The other thing is that some unnamed high U.S. officials told CBS News that Iranian negotiators privately told our team that the recent attacks in the Strait of Hormuz were a mistake carried out by rogue elements of the IRGC. Like I say, same old, same old. If this is true, then step right up and get your tickets for another ride on the Cyclone.